What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are installing a set of 3-inch lower control arms from a Mazda B2000. They are made by DJM. Honestly, I think they're pretty much the only set around that I've seen for our Mazda B series. Whatever you think about the brand, that's kind of up to you. I did get also the optional shocks to go with the truck, so we're probably going to be switching from the Beltex that I have on right now into those DJM shocks as well, kind of all around. But I am starting a bit modified already anyways. You guys know my truck is lower anyways as it is, so some of this might be slightly different on your truck if you are thinking about doing this to a brand factory like truck and everything. So keep that in mind as well. But outside of that, nothing else in here is really aftermarket. So it should be pretty much a pretty straightforward process, I think. We are gonna get started right now with showing you exactly what comes on the box and everything you get with that kit. And then we'll move on to the truck to start removing parts. Let's do it. Alright guys, and here is the box. Now I had already opened mine, but this is everything that you get in here. You're gonna get a set of stickers, a installation guide, some instructions on how to get this done, your pair of lower control arms here as well, and then a couple nuts that I believe those go with the strut rod bar that attached to the bottom of this. Since the factory ones kind of bolt onto the control arm itself, this one doesn't have anything to bolt onto it, so I'm pretty certain that's where that goes. Outside of that, the instruction manual is pretty good. I was taking a look at it, and they are pretty nice and clear instructions, pretty straightforward, lets you know how to do everything in here. So even if you didn't have a video to watch, I think if you buy this, you'll be able to put them on and get everything done. Now here on the side as well, we have the optional shocks. You don't need to buy this ones if you don't have to. If you have good shocks and everything, you can definitely reuse yours. DJM recommends that you get the shocks, but again, it's an optional thing. So now that we know everything that comes in the box here, let's start moving over to the truck and we can start taking things off. All right guys, and first and foremost, we're gonna get our truck up in the air, get it nice and secure, make sure it's not gonna fall down, get your wheel off out of here. And the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna start removing here on the driver's side. Now, they recommend that you come down here, get over here, and there's our bolt. They do recommend that you measure kind of the distance between the bolt, make sure the exposed threads. Also, you want to go ahead and go towards the front, mark where your spindle connects, mark it on that little bracket as well over here. So basically, we want to take as many measurements as you can of how everything is set up right now, especially if you are going from factory. Now mine has been messed with. Like I said, I have re-indexed torsion bars and everything, so I will take some slight measurements, but mine are gonna have to be modified because obviously since I'm adding a lowering control arm now, I'm not planning to go back to the same height I was before because that would put me pretty low, and it's not gonna have any space for the wheel to actually move. So I do have to adjust mine, but if you are starting from scratch, if you're starting from factory, make sure you mark everything, make sure you have measurements, so you know where the factory settings are, and then that way you can start with the 3 inches that the control arms are gonna give you, and then go lower from there if you feel like it, and if you want a better stance than that. But alright, so my torsion bar is off, and again 17 millimeter here. I got it as loose as I can, and then before it actually came off, I just left it there. Then I went into this side and 17 millimeters as well. You will most likely need a power tool. I mean, I wasn't able to just kind of twist it by hand, at least not initially. Once I broke it with a power tool, then I was able to unbolt it fairly easy, but we got both nuts off of them. Everything is still in one piece right now. I label which one goes on which side. Once I get ready to put the new control arm in there, that's when I'm going to come in and try to re-index this a little bit back to the factory setting, just so we're not so low. Because if we keep it this way, I was already like super low. This plus the lower control arm, I'm not going to be able to move the truck on the front basically. All right guys, and on this side we do have to go ahead and remove this nut because that's holding the control arm in here. But before we do that, we are going to remove the stabilizer bar here, and then also the other ones down here.
on. So we have disconnected pretty much everything out of the control arm. We got the stabilizer bar out of the way. We got the strut rod out of the way. We also undid the shock mount here at the bottom. Lower ball joint is also disconnected as well. Now that's gonna be a 23mm socket over here, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, that bolt is under tight, so you will most likely have to use some kind of power tool. I know I had to do it, and I have the Big Daddy power tool here, which is actually kind of bulky and everything, and I ended up going with the long socket as well, which did not help my case. So in my particular situation here, I completely unbolted my stabilizer bar. I removed that out of the way. That gave me enough space and clearance to put my tool in here and get that off. Now I'm about to do this side. I already did the passenger side, so I know it works. Now the only other thing as far as this goes, make sure you are supporting this some kind of way, because as soon as you start loosening that bolt, this is going to start trying to drop, so you can hurt yourself. So keep that in mind. And just like that, we have the control arm out of the way. This is the bolt that comes in there. We are gonna reuse this bolt and everything, so put that to the side, make sure it don't get dirty or anything like that. All right guys, so here I just want to show you really quick. This is the factory control arm. This is the new DJM control arm, and this should be, honestly, I think probably a little more like this. So as you can tell here, the lowering aspect happens right in this area with the ball joint joints. The control arm, everything else stays about the same height and placement that it had before. So you are gaining that lowering aspect by just raising this part of the control arm here. All right, so I taken the shocks off the truck, and here, just so I can show you guys, this I had to basically expand it here, and the reason was this shocks, this little area here on the side, that really needs to be grinded down because the stock ones are a little bit smaller than this. And again, like I said, I didn't like, after I did this, it was kind of ghetto done in there. So we have the new one in here. This is a little bit smaller, but we are still having a bit of a tight fit here. One thing I do like about the Street Performance shocks is this kind of bushings here on the top. As you can tell here, the original ones on the DJM shocks are a lot smaller. These ones are a lot bigger, a lot better looking in my opinion. So I'm gonna swap those right into the top of the shock here. All right guys, and real briefly too, I know I mentioned this part I think earlier. I've been looking at mine, both sides, they look fine, and I had bought the new one in preparation for this as well. But honestly, my Haynes manual doesn't say how to take this part off. It looks like it's pressed in somehow. You can remove this part to get it pressed out somewhere. So you have to use some kind of tool here, maybe a C-clamp or something like that. I don't have the correct tool for this. Here, I'm on a bit of a time crunch. So I am just gonna keep the new pieces that I bought and leave them here in case they mess up or something, and then I'll figure out how to switch them out later. But for this project, I think we're just gonna reuse the same one we have. Like I said, after cleaning it up and everything, it looks to be in good shape. I don't see any anything major wrong with it, so I'd rather maybe do a little more research on how to get that part out, and then if it does mess up at some point, then I'll fix it. But for right now, it doesn't need to be fixed. So we're gonna leave it like that just for the sake of moving on with my progress here. Just because, like I say, I'm moving on a time crunch, so let's get to it. Another thing I wanna mention as well is that the kit does come with this kind of locking nylon nuts to add to the strut rod stabilizer bolts, because the new control arm doesn't have a place to basically thread this bolt into it. Now, I don't know why, I guess my bad luck or whatever, one of these nuts was actually cross-threaded already before I even got to put them in here. When I try to put it in place just to make sure it actually spun in place, normal like it's supposed to, I couldn't get one of them in there in place at all. So I only have 3 of them, and I didn't like this style. I don't know, I think we can go with something that's a little bit better, and that's exactly what I did. I got this kind of locking ones that have this little washer. This is the same type of nut that the torsion bar brackets use. Actually, they're the exact same one because they are from my parts truck. That's why I always keep all kind of bolts and nuts and whatever, just in case I need to reuse it. So this is gonna be the perfect timing. They are the perfect size for these bolts. So we're gonna use these ones instead of the locking ones that came with the kit, just because they are better quality, better metal. I mean, you can see that they look shiny. I just cleaned them up basically, and they've been out here since 91 or 92. So we got the control arm in place. We put our pivot bolt there, and it's just, the nut is in there and everything, but it's not tying up. Make sure you don't tighten that up according to the instructions. The next thing you got to do then is the lower ball joint here. Make sure you tighten up those nuts. Then make sure you have your strut rod as well connected here on the bottom. You don't have to put the shock. It actually recommends to put the shock way later, so you can hold off on doing that. I just did it because I was already in here. So the next step after you do the lower ball joint and the strut rod is to connect the torsion bar bracket here. Make sure you have it marked up. You can see of where and how it goes. So we're gonna put that one in place in there. Make sure we tighten up everything to spec, and then we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is then adding our bar here in place. Alright guys, so we started tightening some of these bolts, and I'm gonna fire off some torque specs here. The ball joint to the control arm, our book says is 60 to 70. I went with 60 foot-pounds. Our bracket here on the control arm says it needs to be between 55 to 69. Nice, we went with 55 here, foot-pounds. Also our bolts down here, they need to be between 69 to 86. Again, we went with 69 in here, very nice. And we are now ready to start kind of adjusting this bar to and everything. I haven't put the bolt over here yet. It's just kind of in place. Again, I'm gonna have to figure out some specs here to be on the right height because I don't have factory specs when I started this whole process. So it is gonna be a little bit of trial and error when it comes to mine. If you are doing this on yours and you are factory spec, hopefully you took measurements of everything. And then that way, if you put everything back together exactly how you took it off, you should just be about 3 inches lower. Once you attach your bolts here on the lower ball joint, make sure you tighten and torque those. You tighten and torque this tension rod as well. You have added your adapter. According to the DJM instructions, after you add this adapter, before you add the bar, you can then tighten up the pivot bolt there. So I just hit it with a couple Ooga Doogas and it should be pretty good, hopefully. So it is all nice and tight. Then you can come in here and add your bar. So you can see I have some markings in here. If you have a header that might be extending a little bit more, what I noticed is that sometimes it might get close here to hitting. So just be careful of that. If it does hit, you might have to try to bend your header a little bit out of the way so you're not rubbing a hole into it. But outside of that, we are pretty good here. We have come and attached tension rod here and we added the bolt in there. The instructions also say add this, make it go all the way to your marking, and then back it up 2 complete turns. So that's what I did. We have our marking here on the top. We backed it up 2 full turns. So this technically should be all good to go now. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead to the passenger side and do that one as well. Then once you get that torque spec to where it needs to go, then you're gonna come in and add your shock. And we're gonna have to then bring this down and test it out and see if we have a good height. If not, then we're gonna have to come back and basically redo the torsion part of it, re-index it a little bit more. Let me jump over there to the passenger side. Let's get that one done. All right, everyone, so we have pretty much put everything back together the way we took it out. I mean, I don't think there's really a point in recording that part, but you guys know if you're doing this, you'll see exactly what I mean. We got our bars in there. We try to re-index them a little bit different just because I was already low. And I can tell you guys too, my alignment is super out of whack. I mean, this wheel is pretty much pointing that way, even though my steering wheel right now in there is straight, so they should be pointing straight. And I don't know if you're going to be able to tell here on the screen, but yeah, that is like half turning this way. So I'm going to try to adjust it a little bit just so I can actually drive the truck to the alignment shop. We're going to go over here, go on this side as well. Everything is in here, added on there. The only thing I do want to mention is that my sway bar, and I'll show you guys here, I'm about to take the wheels off again, but my sway bar links are not attached right now. I don't know if you're gonna be able to tell here. They're not attached right now. The placement of it and the bolts and everything that I have just don't seem to line up. When I put the truck down, everything seems to be in place right, so I might have to put it while the truck is kind of down. Otherwise, right here lifted up and everything, I just can't seem to get it in place. But if you guys can, good for you. If not, you might have to get some different end links. I might have to get some different end links. So just something to keep in mind. And we are pretty much ready to kind of tweak it a little bit more and try to get this out on the road so I can test drive it a little bit. Again, my alignment's super out of whack, so I'm gonna try to adjust this as well a little bit here. So let's get to it. All right, we did a quick alignment as best as we could in here. Honestly, this is just 10 times better. The wheel looks pretty much straight. There's maybe slightly in, but again, we're gonna leave the guys at the alignment shop kind of deal with that and fix it. The other side especially too was super like caved in on the front, so now that one is looking good now. So I'm gonna bring the truck down, torque my lug nuts and everything, and then once it's down, that's when we're gonna put the stabilizer bar here, just because I think that's gonna be a little bit less problems than the way it is right now. All right, guys, we are inside the truck. We're about to go take it for a quick little test drive. Everything seems to be good. I did notice that on my passenger side though, my wheel gap seems to be a little bit smaller than on the driver's side, so I might need to re-index that side a little bit more. Outside of that though, let's go on the ride and let's see. All right, everyone, we are back, and honestly, after taking the truck up for a spin around the block, it does feel good. It feels nice. We didn't lose any of the height, honestly. With the re-indexing, I kind of went just one toot over, and that pretty much put us exactly where we needed to be to kind of keep the same stance. You can kind of see this side is actually a little bit higher than the right side. I think that one I'm gonna have to move the adjusting bolt a little bit more, put it back to the factory position, because actually the passenger side was great, but this side was sagging earlier, and now we're back to having some nice height here, so that's pretty nice about it. The ride on the truck also felt good. When we went over bumps and everything, it didn't feel as harsh as it was before, but honestly, time will tell. The more I drive the truck, once I get it aligned, the more I'm gonna tell whether this was worth it. So far it seems to be. It is a bit of a pain in the butt to install. It is a bit of a pain to get them all in there nice and proper, but hopefully it is a mod that if you are like me and you want to kind of have a bit of a softer ride while keeping the stance, this would probably be the way to go. Outside of that, I need to get the truck aligned, so I'll probably do that a little bit later and then give you guys more thoughts on it if anything changes after I get it aligned, if anything changes as far as the ride goes once it settles a little bit. Obviously, I only took it around the block here once, so it's not enough time to everything for like properly settle, I guess. But yeah, we're looking good. Everything's working good here, so hopefully you like what we're doing. If you do, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the next video. Bye. Well, guys, we are back from doing our little test drive, and honestly, it feels great.